Here we have a Ford Mustang, and here we also have a Ford Mustang?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
Dubious branding aside, this is Ford's first real attempt at an electric vehicle. Hi everyone, my name is Kurt, and welcome to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, where we're going to be taking a look outside, inside. I'm going to show you some of the features. Then we're going to cram a bike in the back of this 2021 Ford Mach-E. What does everyone think of the looks of this vehicle? Of course, being that they called it a Mustang, that comes with certain implications. Overall, the front, I think, is a pretty good looking thing. It does look suspiciously like a Model Y, and I wonder why. But the front has some cool touches like these active aero shutters, which can open and close depending on what the car needs to do cooling wise. Of course, big pony in the front to let you know that this is a Mustang. And even the headlights have these interesting touches in them where they have these three protrusions that sort of carry the design language from the back of the car with the three taillight slits. This is the premium dual motor model, and it comes with 19-inch wheels on Michelin Primacy tires, which are low rolling resistance tires. Another interesting little element that they have going on here on the side is this trick that they do with your eyes with the black roof. They blacked out the roof at this certain angle, which makes it look like this car is a little more raked at the back end than it is. And it does admittedly look pretty cool, and it's an interesting touch that they did that. While we're on the side, it's worth noting that the doors are operated by pushing this little button here, and then you have a tiny little handle that opens the door. And I'm sure that will not be a problem when that inevitably breaks. Coming around to the back of the car, we have what I think is personally the weakest link to the car, the rear styling. You have an homage to the original Mustang with these three little taillights here, and I don't know, it just doesn't work for me personally. There's something frumpy about this rear end. Every other Mustang would have nice wide rear tires, and this has tiny little bitty tires on the back. It doesn't scream Mustang to me. When we hop in the Mach-E, it starts to feel very familiar if you've ever been in a Tesla Model 3 or a Model Y. The design language in here is very minimalistic, and there's also this giant display right in the center of the dash, just like a Model Y or Model 3. So everything is a screen touch. If you want to adjust the heated seats, if you want to adjust the temperature in the cabin, you have to go through this menu structure, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, if I'm honest. I much prefer physical buttons, but that's going to be up to you. There are a few departures from the Model 3 and the Model Y, though, in a good way. So first and foremost, you have a somewhat more traditional gear selector down here that a lot of cars are doing. It's more of a radial button. So you go all the way to the right for drive or to the left for reverse. And that is a little more familiar. In the Teslas, you use the turn stalk, which is a little bit weird. Secondly, I really like that they gave us a proper gauge cluster here, something that sits directly in front of the steering wheel, and you can obviously see through it through the steering wheel. It gives you your speed, which is quite important. It also gives you your battery range and charge and things like that. And that's something that the Teslas in this price range do not have. They rely everything on that screen. So it's nice to have kind of something more familiar and in a better place, in my opinion, for your eyes when you're driving down the road. And finally, the last thing I'll say when I compare it to those other vehicles is that this does seemingly feel better built. It's a little more solid. The build quality is definitely higher than those that I've observed in Teslas, and there's something to be said for that. The choices of material, the way everything is screwed together is just a step above what you would get from Teslas. And I also have a crazy amount of room in here from a driver's perspective. I have a ton of headroom thanks to this glass roof. I'm 6'1", and it's just a spacious cabin. And of course they can do these kind of things. Even though this is all-wheel drive, you don't have a drive shaft running down the center of this thing because the electric motors are in the back and in the front. So you don't have to worry about a lot of design constraints that restrict you with a traditional gas engine car. This has the Bang & Olufsen sound system, which sounds definitely fantastic, but what isn't super fantastic are these seats. They're not crazy supportive, and they just kind of feel a little bit lackluster considering that this is a $55,000 car. They are at least powered though, and they do have adjustable lumbar, which is a nice touch. Time for everyone's favorite bike test. Coincidentally, the Model Y was the first car I ever performed the bike test with in my reviews. People seem to like it, so here we are. In the Model Y, it was a breeze to put my bike in the back. And despite the fact that the Mach-E is extremely similar dimensionally, the rear opening isn't as tall as the Model Y. The rear lift back hatch opens at a higher point in the Model Y, giving you more vertical space to fit your crap in the back. Even so, the Mach-E still does super well here because I can still get my bike in the back without taking the front wheel off. Also, if you've enjoyed the video so far, I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future content. Road drive time, and of course, electric car. We're gonna launch it and go whee! There's something about electric cars that you just, when you put your foot down and you just mash the throttle and it briskly accelerates away, you just have to say whee. I don't know what it is about electric cars that make you do that. It must be the quietness and I don't know, the no shifts and the fact that it feels like the future. And that's the first thing I want to say about this car is that because of course it is electric, rather obviously, it benefits from all the electric car things. And those aren't to be understated. You know, the instant throttle response of an electric car. If you haven't driven one, it's hard to describe until you do. In a traditional electric car or in a traditional gas engine car, I don't care how fast it is. If it's a Porsche PDK, the fastest shifting transmission in the world, you put your foot down, you have to wait till the car shifts to the right gear, and then it will eventually pull away. And sometimes there's a little lag because maybe it's turbocharged. There is a certain amount of gap that you cannot get away with in a traditional gas engine car with a, traditional transmission. But in an electric car, there's none of that. The second you put your foot down, there's no shifting. It's a single speed transmission, so it's always in gear. And of course, the throttle response is instant because it's electrons, or seemingly instant. So it's just like you can't understate just the fact that a car is electric, how many benefits that has. Instant throttle response, the quietness and serenity of an electric car is also not to be understated. And it makes me actually so excited to think about electric cars that get more and more affordable. This is a pretty expensive electric car at around 55 grand as tested. But they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And at some point we'll have something close to resembling, a Toyota Corolla electric car. And that's also going to receive all these benefits. Like, it is so quiet in here. And what do we associate quietness with in vehicles? Typically luxury. Typically that's a luxury feature, right? It's quiet, it's refined, it's smooth. We're talking about no shifting, it's super smooth. Whiz away. And that's just that's the nice part about electric cars. Every time I get in one, they all have a similar character just because, they all operate more or less the same and you get all of those benefits. As it relates to the Mach-E, not the Model Y, which it is clearly a direct competitor to. There's so many things in here that is just okay guys, I know we're benchmarking the Model Y, but did we have to do the exact same giant screen in the center and the exact same glass roof? I'm not complaining about the glass roof. The glass roof is really nice, although as a driver, I don't really get to experience it or enjoy it that much. That's really more for the passengers, especially in the back. But, yes, it feels very similar to the Model Y that I drove. And this, of course, is the dual motor. So it's very, very quick. Bicyclists, They probably can't hear me coming because I'm in an electric car. I think that when it comes to speed and electric cars, it's just so it's so well masked. Like, there's no sensation of what gear you're in as far as how fast you're going. You just put your foot down and it just endlessly pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. And of course, we don't need to get too much into how this makes you feel, like as a sports car experience, because this isn't a sports car, even though they did call it a Mustang, and that is a little bit confusing to me, because to me this car has a bit of an identity crisis. Like, what is it? They call it a Mustang because I think they want to try and make electric cars fun, but it's not a canyon carver, it's not a sports car. I mean, it's very capable up here, don't get me wrong, because of this dual motor all-wheel drive, and they're doing all kinds of vectoring here and keeping the car on the road. But like, it just seems needlessly done. I think most people that are going to buy this car just want the traditional Model Y experience, probably aren't really into sports cars. The speed is nice to have, but I think they're more in it just for the electric car experience, to have something kind of unique and different. And on this very smooth road, the ride is very good. When you do get on broken pavement, it is quite jostling, like especially harsh bumps. It's just, you can tell they tried to make this ride sportier than, in my opinion, it really needed to be. Maybe that's up to you. Did it really need to be this sporty? I don't know. I mean, it's certainly pretty capable on this road, and it hides its mass pretty well. Electric cars are pretty heavy with those batteries. The steering turn-in isn't super quick. And that's why I go back to, once again, what is the goal here? Like, is the goal to make something fun to drive, or is the goal to make a kind of nice electric car? There's a little more road noise than I would expect, but there's always more road noise, seemingly, in an electric car when you take away the engine, right? When you hear nothing else, you pick up on the things more, right, that you otherwise wouldn't. Now, there's very little wind noise, I will say that. And overall, it is a very quiet experience. So the only thing that you do hear is the road noise. So maybe that's why it gets amplified, because it's the only thing you hear. But this car just glides and is super smooth. One thing I will say, as far as that I don't like, that stands out to me, are the brakes. The brakes are not intuitive. They are clearly doing something here with regen when you get a certain level into the brakes, and then, further in, you're getting more on the actual physical brakes. And that's all electric cars will do that. I mean, it makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. But the way it's integrated, or the lack of integration maybe, is what bothers me. It's hard to be smooth, especially at low speeds. It can be kind of jerky. It's a strange experience. And if you've only got out of a regular traditional car, it might feel quite foreign to you. If you've driven other electric cars, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just, they're still working on that programming. And that's something that can easily be fixed with software. I say easily, not easily fixed, but it's something that can be fixed with software, which is nice, because you don't have to worry about potentially doing all kinds of hardware fixes to fix something like that. That's just a programming change. That's a logic change, smoothing out and massaging the sort of programming surrounding regen and physical braking. I think at 55 grand, what I like about this car, at least compared to the Model Y, I have to go back to the Model Y because it's a natural competitor. is it's built a lot better than a Model Y. Every Tesla I've been in, personally, is not the best built vehicle. And, that's, everyone knows that. But that bothers me. At 55 grand, that definitely bothers me. And I have concerns about that, especially the fact that it doesn't seem to be changing. Like, it doesn't seem like they're getting too much better. So the fact that Ford, a company that's been around for over 100 years, has a vehicle like this, that it just feels more sorted in that regard. It feels better built. And that goes a long way, to me at least, especially when it comes to something new like an electric car. I want to be able to count on it and depend on it and know that it's going to get supported. There's Ford dealers all over the place. I think they could have done a little better job with these seats. Once again, identity crisis. If you're going to make it sporty, give it a sporty ride, make it fast, call it a Mustang, then you need to give more supportive seats. These seats are like, there's zero support. And they're also just kind of cheap feeling. For a $55,000 car, I would have preferred nicer seats. Even from just a general support standpoint, not just canyon carving. They're fine on short distances, but I could see these really breaking down on long journeys. Seating position is good though. They've done a good job in making something that is mostly familiar. There's some things with Teslas that are a bit weird, that somebody who isn't like a tech person and hasn't dealt with a Tesla before would get in and not really know how to deal with. Even little things like the weird turn signal stock that is your gear selector. It's not a big deal and you get used to it very quickly, but if I take my mom, who's never been in a Tesla, not very tech savvy, and I say, oh yeah, go drive my Tesla, she literally probably couldn't figure it out unless I explained it, right? But if she got in here, there's a knob here to put your car into drive or park or whatever, she would figure it out, right? And I think there is something to be said for that. We need to bridge the gap between gas cars and electric cars and make them familiar for people to use and enjoy. I think that is a big step, and this car is a big step. I think Ford did a really good job. Don't understand why it's called a Mustang. Think they could make it a little less sporty, put a little more emphasis on comfort and premiumness, and it would make it better. But overall, this is a friggin' awesome package, especially for their first go. I really, really like, the last thing I'll say is I really like that they didn't completely follow the Model Y with even your speed over here on this center tablet. They gave you a slightly more traditional gauge cluster in the center. And it has my speed right in front of me, not like over here where my eyes would have to wander. So bravo to Ford. I think they have a little bit of tuning to do, but most of my complaints are nitpicks, and this is a great car. The only thing that you will be missing out on really with the Tesla, personally, in my opinion, would be the charging network. And that is a big one, so that's up to you. But realistically, I think most buyers for these have a house and can charge it at home. For me, I live in an apartment. Electric cars don't make sense at all for me because I'd have no place to charge them. I would have to rely on the public charging network, which is frankly a disaster. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.